Welcome one and all to the first ever FanCon. My name is Phil Machi and I host Stay Tuned, a podcast and live stream talk show series that goes behind the scenes with the people who make animation possible. And now, I'm so excited to be your host for this one-of-a-kind virtual event where we'll look at upcoming animated film projects, discuss some classic favorites, and even bring you into the conversation with fan questions. Okay, my first guest here at FanCon is responsible for breathing life into such characters as Roger Rabbit, Eddie Valiant, and Jessica Rabbit. Please welcome the king of Toontown himself, Gary K. Wolf.
Hey, how you doing? Good to be here. You know, I'm usually known as the exalted high potentate of Toontown, but King works too. That's all right.
Yes, the full title unfortunately wouldn't fit on screen, so I had to go with the truncated version of it.
After 6 months in COVID, I won't fit on screen either. So
It's Gary. It's great to see you here, and some people might know this, but you and I we actually spoke on the podcast that I do called Stay Tuned.
Yeah, my best interview ever.
The best interview ever. Yeah, it was actually under a year ago. It was November of last year, so it hasn't been a full year quite yet.
Whoa. Oh man, how time flies when you're not going anywhere.
Yes, that's unfortunately very true. It's great to see you though again, seriously.
Nice to see you too.
Well, before we get started, I can't help but notice behind you, you've got this what looks to be an original animation cell.
Yeah. It's a scene from the movie. It is the scene at the end of the movie where Roger and Jessica are hanging from the hook, and the dip is coming, and he looks up, and this is the exact moment when he looks up and says, "Oh, I love you," and she looks down and says, "I love you too." And Disney gave me that cell, and it's very, very precious to me because, first of all, if you see the movie, there are not a whole lot of scenes where Roger and Jessica are together.
Yeah.
And there are not a lot of scenes where they are together and happy. She's bopping him over the head with a frying pan. That's, don't want to sell that. So Disney gave me this cell, and it's very precious to me for a lot of reasons. It's autographed by Kathleen Turner, who was the voice of Jessica, of course. Charlie Fleischer, who I think you just had on your show.
I had him on Stay Tuned Live recently.
Yeah, it was the wackadoodle voice of Roger. Dick Williams, who's the lead animator. Steve Spielberg, who is the producer and who really made the movie happen. Bob Zemeckis, who was the director. And the oddity is that it was drawn by Jacques Muller, and I did not know that at the time, and I didn't know it until Jacques posted on his Facebook page the sketches for that scene.
Oh.
And I friended him, and I said, Jacques, because he was in Europe, and I didn't know all the guys who were working in Europe at the time, and I said, Jacques, did you do that scene? And he said, yeah, I animated that scene. And I should have taken it out of the frame and sent it to him and had him autograph it. He passed away a couple of months ago. But as a result of that, we became really, really good friends. And he he drew the cover for my third Roger Rabbit book.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah, he did the cover for that. And then he did all of the characters, the sketches for all the characters that are in the book. But the one kind of eerie thing about the cell, it's autographed by Bob Hoskins. And of course, Bob passed away a couple of years ago. On the day that Bob Hoskins died, I went and took a look at the cell. His signature had vanished. It's no longer on there. You can get up there with a magnifying glass, and you cannot even see an indentation where he signed it. It is vanished.
Did he use the Acme disappearing, reappearing?
Reappearing ink, and I'm hoping that that's not indicative of as all these old anime. Well, Dick Williams also died, and his signature didn't disappear. So I guess
We lost him last year, unfortunately. It's been just a little over a year, I believe.
Yeah, brilliant guy.
What a treasure to have that piece behind you. And I have to ask, is that relationship, that on-screen relationship that we really didn't get too much of, has that ever been something you wanted to explore more?
The relationship between Roger and Jessica? Oh yeah. I just finished a new novel, and it's called Jessica Rabbit: Serious Business, and serious is spelled with an X, Xerious, Serious Business, and it is really an origin story. It shows where Jessica came from, how she grew up, how she became Jessica Rabbit, how she met Roger, how they fell in love.
Oh, wow.
And how Toontown came to be.
Is the book out already? Did I just miss an announcement?
It's been on the bestseller list for 12 weeks. I don't know why. No. I just finished it. And right now I'm trying to decide who to use for a publisher. And, or if I want to publish a book now in a time when bookstores are closed and, nobody can really go and buy a book. I'm not sure. But, my guess is it'll be out next year.
Do you even have to go through a publisher, or could you self-publish at this point because people already know who you are?
It's a mixed bag. I have self-published I didn't self-publish the 3 Roger Rabbit novels before. They were all published by publishers.
Right.
And, when the rights reverted to me, I then self-published them on Amazon, print on demand. And for an author, you actually make more money doing it that way because you get a much bigger percentage of the pie.
Absolutely.
And I hate to say ego's sake because I am the man without an ego, but I sure would love to see Jessica Rabbit on the New York Times bestseller list. And if I publish that book myself, that's never going to happen. So I think I will probably go with a regular publisher. Yeah.
Okay. Do you kind of, again, now that you've got enough successes of previous books under your belt, does that make it where you can basically choose any publisher you want and everybody's going to be excited about it, or is it still an auditioning process?
Oh, it's always an auditioning process, even at my level. I'm sure that probably Stephen King can take it anywhere, but there's still a certain reluctance in the publishing community to publishing books about talking rabbits. And, it's been 35 years since the movie. And in the publishing industry, that's a lifetime. People say, oh, well, nobody remembers those characters.
But Bugs Bunny turned 80 this year, so that's got to count for something with rabbits.
Yeah, it's got to. They're saying nobody remembers. Nobody knows who Jessica Rabbit is. Nobody knows. Well, I've got 1,000 cosplayers who send me pictures at the rate of 10 a day who tell you otherwise. So,
right.
Yeah, it's just a question. It's like the first novel. I think we discussed this back when I talked to you originally.
We did.
I wrote the first novel. My publisher, I had a publisher, Doubleday, and they gave me a contract. I could write whatever I wanted, and they would publish it. And so this was the 4th novel of my contract. Who Censored Roger Rabbit? I sent it to them, and they said no. They rejected it. And so I called my editor and I said, why did you reject this? Best thing I've ever written, best thing I'll ever write. And she said, well, I think so too, but it's so different from what you've written before, so different from what anybody else has ever written that I had to send it to the marketing department. And they were the ones who rejected it.
Right.
So when I went to the marketing department, and I said, hey, Chuck, why did you reject this? And the head of the marketing department told me, well, I can't sell this book. He said, there's no category for it on the bookstore shelves. Yep. It's not a regular fantasy. It's not an adult novel. It's not a regular mainstream fictional novel. It's not a mystery novel. It's not a children's book. So there's no category for it on the bookstore shelf.
And that's the dangerous thing
all right.
about breaking off into new territory is
Yeah. Well,
is they don't like that. They don't want to be new.
Yeah, I asked the guy, I said, what would you do if somebody today brought you The Wizard of Oz or Gulliver's Travels
Right.
or Alice in Wonderland?
Right.
What would you do with those? And he thought for a minute and said, I couldn't sell those either. So my agent sent that book out to 110 different publishers, got 110 rejects for the same reason. Editors loved it. Marketing department said they couldn't sell it until finally St. Martin's took a flyer on it and said, all right, you will print it, but in very, very limited quantities.
So now we're on the other side of that, and we got a new book coming out soon, and we've got a film, obviously, that a lot of people still love very much, and 3 subsequent shorts that people love as well. Something that I always kind of wondered, all the characters in Toontown, they all were created. They're ink and paint. They were created by different people, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then the question is, who inked and painted Toontown itself as a place?
Oh, it was a collaborative effort. I talk about Toontown in the Who Censored Roger Rabbit book, and I'm not an artist. People are always telling me, "Hey, draw a picture of the rabbit," and the best I can do is a stick figure. 2 ears, a body, a round head, a nose. That's the best I can do. So I worked with some of the most creative and talented artists I've ever met in my life to design not only my characters, Roger, Jessica, Baby Herman, to design those characters, but the ambiance of Toontown. I mean, what does a place look like where Toons live?
Right.
And, I described it very briefly in my first novel, Who Censored Roger Rabbit. I described it in much more detail in the second novel, Who Plugged Roger Rabbit, where we standardized on the 4-piece stutter. And I described it again in the third Roger Rabbit novel, Who Whacked Roger Rabbit. I didn't describe it at all in Jessica Rabbit's Serious Business because I talk about how Toontown came to be. So it still hasn't come to be yet. But it was a collaboration. No one person sat down and said, "Hey, I'm going to draw Toontown." So it was a number of very, very creative people.
I feel like some of the themes and some of the ideas from the film, for me, left some really interesting questions. Like, let's pretend Judge Doom succeeded and he was able to use dip to wipe Toontown off the map. What exactly would have been left? Just like a white void?
A big hole in the ground. Some things I don't like to contemplate because I'm afraid my head will explode.
Yeah, that's exactly.
It's like looking at a reflection of me in a mirror, or looking at a reflection of me in a mirror, looking at me in a reflection in a mirror. It can go on and on and on and on forever. If I were to sit down and say, "Gee, I think I'll do an alternate ending novel where Judge Doom succeeds and Toontown is wiped out," what kind of a novel would that be? I don't know.
Did you ever envision what Judge Doom actually looked like without the mask on?
No, that was a Disney construct. Judge Doom was something they came up with as a villain, and I thought a pretty good one. And I'm not an artist. I can describe what I think he should look like, but Disney, and specifically Dick Williams, actually gave life to him. And I have been told by many, many, many people that their worst childhood nightmare was Judge Doom with his eyes spinning and his high, squeaky voice. I mean, that has traumatized as many children as were traumatized in my era when when that hunter shot Bambi's mother. You know,
Oh,
and oh my God, they shot Bambi's mother, and Bambi doesn't have a mother anymore. And Judge Doom is the equivalent of, you know, adios Bambi's mother.
I think he's terrifying because he's kind of whatever he wants to be.
Yeah.
He can turn his eyes into daggers. He can turn his hand into a saw blade. And because of that, because we can't wrap our head around what he actually is, it makes him the stuff of nightmares.
Yeah, he's like an evil transformer. He can be what he wants. And
Yeah.
you know what is an evil Toon? We don't really deal in the movie, and I actually have very rarely dealt in my books with evil Toons. You know, all Toons are fun-loving. Some of them are mischievous, like the weasels. They're out to do dastardly things, but they're not pure evil.
Right.
Doom, pure evil. You know, the character that really made an impact on people in that movie was the Red Shoe.
Yeah.
The Red Shoe. There is a society to bring back the Red Shoe, and yeah, and I get emails from them and messages saying, you know, in any new movie, can you bring back the Red Shoe?
Well, if you can't bring him back, I would at least think, since it's a pair of shoes, that the other part of the pair would exist.
He was the left shoe, the right shoe. The right shoe's the right shoe poor is a lady and has been sobbing her eyes out for her poor departed husband all these many
Oh my gosh, it's
But
tragic.
I have promised the fans that if and when there is a new Roger Rabbit movie, that the Red Shoe will return.
Oh, good. See, because it begs the question. Because look, if a cartoon can be drawn into existence, couldn't an animator draw the Red Shoe back into existence?
Yeah, again, these are all existential questions, which are kind of way above my.
Gary, now you
You
understand
need John Paul Sartre for this kind of stuff. I don't know.
now you can see what keeps me up at night, and I can probably blame much of my lack of sleep on your stories.
The philosophy of Gary K. Wolf.
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I remember going to Disney World in Orlando, and they had a version of Toontown in Orlando,
Mm-hmm.
and it was such a magical experience. I hate to use the term magical as it's to coin a phrase, but it was because they built like the warehouse, the Acme warehouse, and they had all of the props.
Yeah,
And
they had the Toonmobile.
they had the Toonmobile. Yeah, and I remember I don't know
The road flattener,
the steamroller.
steamroller. Yeah, there you go. They had the steamroller. Right?
They did, and I don't know if I still have it, but somewhere in my closet of fun, I have a little purple coin, like a doubloon, that they gave out for like a Mardi Gras event, but it has Roger Rabbit's face on it.
Oh, I've seen those. Yeah, they threw them from floats.
They threw them from floats. Yes,
floats. And if you had one today, it would go for a zillion simoleons on eBay. Yeah,
it probably would. So, did you have a hand in any of the creation of that real world Toontown?
Oh yeah, the one in California. Yeah, Mickey's Toontown. One of my fondest memories, actually. I don't think I've ever told the story, but
oh
yeah, it opened. This is an exclusive, all right.
FanCon exclusive.
It opened on my birthday. Intentionally, they actually were going to open it the day before, and I said, "Hey, could you hold off a day, because January 24th is my birthday," and so they did. So they opened it on my birthday in 1993, and I'm not an artist. I'm certainly not an architect, but they did call me in periodically to consult with me about what they were going to do. It is like walking through my own imagination. It is like walking through my head. Like somebody pays a quarter to look inside my brain. There are no right angles in Toontown. None. They are all oddball angles. No right angles in Toontown. And Toontown is like a living thing. It has a personality of its own. It's built to look like the kinds of places that Max Fleischer used to put in his cartoons, his Betty Boop cartoons.
Absolutely.
And it it has things that go on inside Toontown that only dedicated Toontownians know about. Like there's a manhole cover right in kind of the main square, and if you stand in a certain place on the manhole cover, you can hear the weasels in the sewer underneath plotting about how they're going to kidnap Jessica.
Oh,
Right?
fun.
Yeah, if you go into the post office and look at the post office, you'll see that all of the characters, the biggies, have mailboxes. And if you spin the dial on one of the characters' mailboxes in a certain way, the character will talk to you. So you can talk to Goofy or Donald or Mickey or Roger. Jessica doesn't have a mailbox. She uses a messenger service in the mailbox for her.
Well,
If
that's what's great about it is it's an interactive environment.
It's an interactive environment, yeah. If you go into Minnie's house, all right, as you're going out, you go through the whole Minnie's house, and you see Minnie's house, and then as you're going out the back door of Minnie's house, there's an armchair, and if you look at the armchair, draped over the armchair is a Victoria's Secret like catalog, and on the cover is Jessica, and the title of it is Jessica's Secret. All right.
Nice.
But the real inside scoop, as you're leaving Minnie's house, if you turn around and look back as you're going out the door, you see her bookcase. All right. On her bookcase is a copy of Who Censored Roger Rabbit.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fun.
They opened that land in 1993 and invited me out. Of course, they opened it on my birthday, and my wife and I went out. It was and I hate to use the term magical too, but it was magical. They closed the entire park. It was only open by special invitation, and the invitations went out to every Hollywood star who was in Hollywood on that day.
Oh,
And
wow.
then you just looked. I remember Tom Selleck. I remember John Goodman. I remember being on a roller coaster with Jerry Seinfeld sitting behind me, telling me jokes to tell to Whoopi Goldberg in the car in front of me to crack her up.
Oh my gosh.
And I was walking down this one of the streets, and there was Steve Spielberg, Ron Howard, and Bob Zemeckis, all just standing there with ice cream cones, talking to each other like they were just normal human beings. Elizabeth Shue. It just went on and on. Every place you looked, there were movie stars. And
Wow.
what was interesting, they all brought their kids, although Disney had a full and complete nanny service available. So the nannies took the kids, and the movie stars went on the rides, and it was just like being in Disneyland with all of your idols. Just incredible. But the best part, all right, that wasn't even the best part. The best part, all the food was free.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That is the best part.
Yeah, hot dogs, cotton candy, whatever you want, all free.
What a wonderful memory. That's such
I'll never forget it. That's where you'll hear references to simoleons.
Well, yeah, you were mentioning that word earlier, and Toontown had its own currency, right?
The currency of Toontown is the simoleon, and the first appearance of simoleons came at that Toontown, the grand opening. They printed up. Well, I happen to have a copy. Wait, I'll show you.
Oh. Oh my gosh! Look.
See that?
Yes.
That's the front. That is a zillion simoleons. Quicksilver certificate. The serial number is 54321 kaboom. And this note is legal tender when roasting, toasting, or posting. And they made a bunch of those, and I had to sign them all. And I signed for Roger too, although don't tell anybody.
What is oh, that's fun. What is the conversion rate for the US dollar to simoleon?
Oh, a zillion simoleons is worth at least $2 million, at least.
Oh.
A man can live like a king in Toontown with a zillion simoleons. And they put one into the gift bag for every celebrity who came to Toontown that day.
Wow.
And then the few that were left over, they gave to me and said, "Here, you take them home with you." So
that's such a cool. I mean, really, it is like imagination coming to life.
Yeah, everything about the movie, everything about Toontown, the themed land, first rate. Nobody ever cheaped out. They could have saved. I'm not kidding you. They could have saved millions of dollars on Toontown by just having everything be squared up. But instead, no square lines. Everything is, and that makes it mystical. When you go into it and look at it, there's something about it, but you can't put your finger on it.
Well, because it defies our everyday existence.
Yeah.
And what's great about it is if there are future films, of course, now you are working on Ranger Raccoon. Now we have a place where they could hold a premiere.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to hold a premiere of Ranger Raccoon. I don't know, maybe at the Earlville Drive-In where I grew up back in Illinois.
Oh, that's nice.
I think that would be appropriate. I've got Ranger Raccoon going. I've got another one going called Killer Bowl.
Yeah, you and I talked about Killer Bowl in our first conversation. I gotta say, I was surprised to find out that it's going to go animated.
Yeah, funny thing has happened with the COVID situation. The film industry is just completely fallen off. I mean, you cannot make a movie because you can't do the COVID requirements, and forget about doing a love scene. I understand that some soap operas are doing their love scenes by at the last moment replacing one of the two characters with a dummy. So you can't really make live action movies now, but animators can work from home. So the animation industry is booming. It's just booming. And so they're looking at scripts that were done as live action and seeing how they would transition to animation.
Okay.
And, I happen to be fortunate in having a number of scripts that do just that. One of them is Ranger Raccoon, which is the story of a genetically modified raccoon who becomes man-sized and has intelligence and walks and talks, and is sent out in the world and as a way to disguise himself, because he is a man-sized talking raccoon. He works as a theme park costume. They think he's a costume character. They think he's wearing a raccoon costume, but he's actually a raccoon, and he's Ranger Raccoon. And it's a really, really interesting action adventure story about this raccoon and how he has to find his creator, because he takes a pill every day, and if he doesn't take the pill, he dies, and he's only got 10 pills left. So it's pretty good.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got Sam Humphrey, who was Tom Thumb in The Greatest Show on Earth. He's going to voice Ranger Raccoon. Sevda Costner.
Yeah, you got yeah.
You know, Sevda. She is, we're lucky to get her because she is going to be huge. She is, I compare her to young Helen Mirren. She is just sensational. I mean, she's
That
gorgeous.
is high praise.
She's gorgeous. She's got a great voice. She's a fantastic actress. Has done mostly theater up until now, but this is going to be her film. She's going to play Cheryl, who is not the raccoon's girlfriend, because I didn't want to do that again. But she just is a very good friend, and she's also one of the characters, one of the mascots at the carnival where they both work. So Sevda will do that. Ranger Raccoon lends itself perfectly to animation. I mean, perfectly. So that's not even a stretch. Killer Bowl, oddly enough, is my most famous science fiction novel. I've written a number of science fiction novels, and Killer Bowl, my first, is still my most famous. When I go to a science fiction conference, I'm not known as the guy that created Roger Rabbit and the King of Toontown. I'm known as the guy who wrote Killer Bowl, and I still get 30 or 40 fan letters a week on this book. And this book came out in 1975, and I'm still getting fan mail on it.
I mean, that's huge.
And yeah, and it turns out that the Killer Bowl can also work really almost better as an animated movie than as a live action movie, because believe it or not, you can show levels of violence in an animated movie that you can't show in a real movie. You know, stylized exploding blood, stylized exploding heads. I mean, you see that all the time in great horror movies, but you can do that in an animated movie and not even get an R rating. I mean, it's just.
So is it going to be treated more like a comedy?
It's going to be a comedy, yeah. And that was the other thing. I did a screenplay for it because the original Killer Bowl novel I wrote in 1975, and it was set in 2010, 2011. An amazing number of predictions I made in 1975 came true. I predicted the cell phone. I predicted the internet. I predicted the gas crisis. I predicted a whole bunch of stuff that came true. But I did a screenplay, and I set it 50 years in the future. So it's set 2070.
You didn't predict any lotto numbers, did you?
No, but I could. 7, 12, 14, 32, 45, and the Powerball is 7. All right? There you go.
There it is.
There you go, fans. And when those numbers come up and 50 million people have played them, what are we going to do? So I wrote it, and people were reading it, and they said, this is the funniest screenplay we've ever read. And I think they were coming into it not knowing my science fiction background, but knowing my Roger Rabbit background. And they're reading it, and they're saying, it's the funniest screenplay I've ever read. I just howled when I read this screenplay. And I had written it as a serious screenplay. And so I went back and I reread it, and I got to admit, it's pretty funny.
You accidentally wrote a comedy?
No, to tell you the truth, I never write comedy. Everything I write is dead serious fiction, including Roger Rabbit. I wrote Roger Rabbit as a serious look at racial inequities and the relationship between underdogs and people in control, stereotyping. I wrote it as a serious look at that, but it came out funny, and it's just the way things happen for me.
It makes me wonder what would happen if you tried to write a comedy. I have to wonder what.
I have no idea. I have never actually tried to write a comedy. I go into everything I write and write it as serious fiction, and it comes out funny.
But it makes sense because I think real comedy can come from something that's genuine. And if you're genuine in your approach and you're writing something that the characters are taking themselves seriously, but weird things happen to them.
Yeah.
That's a good recipe for comedy.
So in Killer Bowl, Sam Humphrey again is going to star. He will star as the quarterback, and his his girlfriend, and eventually his brother's girlfriend. There's a giveaway, but Kristen, that will also be Sevna Costner. So we have our little Orson Welles fire sign theater thing going on here, where we're using really, really great actors in a number of different projects.
You see that once something really clicks with a group of people, that same group seems to get together again.
Yeah. Well, I've had many talks with Sam and with Sevda, and they're just delightful people, and they're really terrific actors. So I'm happy to have them. And for animation, where they lend their voice talent, perfect. Absolutely perfect.
I kind of want to shift gears a little bit. The Roger Rabbit short called "Something's Cooking," which is from the very beginning of the movie.
Got it. Ready?
There we go.
There we go. All right. Roger Rabbit and Baby Herman. Whoa. Something's Cooking, directed by Raoul J. Rowell.
Did you come up with that? Was that a name that you thought of, the Raoul J. Rowell?
Oh, the Disney people came up with that. But one of the interesting things, the dress that woman has on, you see that dress repeated in various motifs in almost all of the Roger Rabbit cartoons. This is really where you're introduced right here to Roger as a character, and to Charlie Fleischer is one of the most incredible voice actors that I've ever seen. I mean, he's just... Now, an interesting thing. This was the opening scene from the movie, and Dick Williams, who was the lead animator, wanted people to know that this was really an animation tour de force. So when you go into the kitchen and you see that floor, black and white tiles. Now, when he's doing animation, every time the camera changes angle, he had to change the angle on the black and white tiles. And there was no reason for that floor to be black and white tile, except Dick Williams wanted to show some real animation stuff. And there was no reason for Roger to be reflected in the tiles, except it was just a really, really difficult thing to do. Now, the stove, hotter than hell.
Yeah.
Volcano heat. And, this is so kind of sadistic. I mean, if your nanny was Roger, you'd fire him in a heartbeat.
That's right. How much consultation did you have on this short?
I was there when Dick Williams animated this short personally, and he was sitting in a booth in that Red Barn Cafe, sitting in a booth animating this, and I was watching him animate it. And, I don't presume to say that I gave him anything at all, except for maybe some love and inspiration, because he was just magnificent when he did this. The gag after gag after gag, and they just kept coming. If you look at some of Dick Williams' early commercial work, he animated a cat, I think, a cat with 9 lives, for some English beer.
I grew up on that cartoon. I didn't know that was him.
Yeah, and if you look at those commercials, you will see a lot of the same situations because the cat had 9 lives and the cat was always dying and coming back. You can see a lot of the same situations that he used here.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, you're right. This is such a intricately violent but gorgeously animated short.
All right, now here comes the big reveal. Safe, boom. And at this point, the whole thing changes. It's where it went from black and white to color in The Wizard of Oz. You know, all of a sudden you realize this isn't some sappy cartoon.
Right.
It's a real live action movie. Dick Williams wanted this to be a real masterpiece of animation, and I think he succeeded. One of the reasons why Jessica has such a wasp waist and such, what can I say, extruded protrusions, I guess, is because he did not. Yeah, how about that? That'll go into Funk and Wagnalls. So the reason why she is so disproportionately shaped was because Dick Williams wanted people to know that she was not rotoscoped. And I don't know if people know what rotoscoping is, but in rotoscoping, you film a live actor or well, they're all called actors now, but a male or female actor doing something. And then frame by frame, you kind of draw over it. And that's how I think in Sleeping Beauty, I think she's dancing. It was done. Disney did it, and there's nothing wrong with it. It gives a very realistic kind of look, and the motions are all realistic. But Dick wanted people to know that she was not rotoscoped. In Roller Coaster Rabbit, where Baby Herman is looking for the balloon, which, in my opinion, Roller Coaster Rabbit is the best cartoon ever made. I mean, Roller Coaster Rabbit holds its own with any Tex Avery cartoon, with any cartoon done in Warner Brothers. It's magnificent.
It is.
But it's the same. It's a one joke. You know, Roger is taking care of Baby Herman. Baby Herman gets in a pile of trouble, and
a bull gets very offended.
Yeah. Oh, the bull. Yeah. And you know, I still can't believe that one got past. I can't believe it got past the Disney higher ups, and
we're all better for it.
Yes, we are.
And then, of course, Trail Mix-Up, which I thought Trail Mix-Up ended really interestingly because we always get to see the cartoons, how they interact with the physical world, Roger Rabbit. But in Trail Mix-Up at the very end, you had Mount Rushmore, which is a physical, real world thing, become toonized.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've talked about gags in the margins. Gags in the margins are the little 6-cell jokes that animators put into animated movies. And film goes through the projector 24 frames a second. And animators found out early on in the animation process, as far back as Gertie the Dinosaur in the 1920s, that they could screw around with 6 of those frames and do basically anything they wanted, and the human eye couldn't see it.
That would explain the poster in The Rescuers.
Yeah. And they would put little jokes, and animated movies are full of them. All 3 of the cartoons. There's 24 in the movie, but the cartoons are just full of them. And in Trail Mix-Up at the end, when the bear and Roger and Baby Herman are marching, in 6 frames, apparently you can see that Baby Herman does not have such a small weenie after all. And so, yeah. So now you can all go to your DVDs, hit the pause button, and
make sure no one else is around.
That's porn, yeah.
Hey, well, I've got some questions from fans I'd like to share with you, if that's okay. These might be cartoon fans. Okay. Because this first question is from Uncle Scrooge. And he asks, How much money have you made from it?
Oh, okay. Well, interesting story. That was actually one of the first questions that I was ever asked in an interview. I got this call at home from the Philadelphia Inquirer, which in my mind I confused with the National Enquirer. I thought, I thought these were the guys who talked to Elvis in a bowling alley. And so I did not take this interview really seriously. I didn't know. I mean, Philadelphia Inquirer is an incredible paper, but I thought I was talking to people that were, going to report on three-headed aliens. So the guy was really good interviewer and asked me a bunch of questions. And, at the end, he asked me that very question. He said, "Hey, did you make a lot of money on this?" Well, the movie had just come out. I mean, it had been out for 2 weeks, and of course, I hadn't seen any royalty checks or anything like that. But this was the National Enquirer, so I thought I'm going to give him a little hustle here. And I said, "Well, the Brinks truck pulled up outside my house and offloaded all these bags of money, and there was so much money that I'm looking at it, and I said, should I buy the Ferrari or should I buy the Maserati?" And then I said, screw it, one of each. And they printed it. And I looked like a complete idiot. And I thought, there's a question I'm never going to answer again. But I will tell you one other thing about that. It's a good news, bad news situation. The good news was that Disney paid me in Disney dollars. All right. Good news. More good news. You could spend Disney dollars at Toys R Us. Bad news. Toys R Us is gone. So all my Disney dollars are all now stacked up in bundles in my basement. So I have nothing else.
Are you being serious?
What do you think?
No.
Hey, you got to remember, I'm a writer and I lie for a living, and I'm very, very good at it.
But that's the best way to play along, is you incorporate some element of truth into it.
Yeah. Everything I say has some element of truth. What else you got? What's the next one?
I got something from Mighty Mysterion, and he asked, "Can you tell us a story you've never told anyone before?" Ooh.
Okay. I have told this story once before, but I doubt anybody's going to remember it. And you got to have a little background on it. Remember, I told you that I got 110 rejects on my Roger Rabbit novel. Well, when it finally did come out, the book publishing company that published it sent me a case of books, and I had maybe 50 books. All right. And that was the first time that I'd ever published anything where I got fan mail. I was a pretty well-known science fiction writer, but nobody ever sat down and, wrote me a letter. But when Roger Rabbit came out, people started writing me letters, and they said they'd send them to the publisher would send them to me, and they would say, "I love this. This is the best book I've ever read. It's wonderful." And I was so tickled by that whenever somebody sent me a fan letter, I sent them a book. I would autograph a book and send them a book. And so pretty soon, I had no books left. I had sent out all of my books. But, okay, it made a lot of people happy. So after the movie came out, my cousin, who was a third grade school teacher in Cicero, Illinois, asked me if I would address her third grade class. And so I said, yeah, I'm happy to do that. So I gave them the talk. They expected to see Roger Rabbit. They were kind of surprised when I walked in. They expected to see a 6-foot tall white rabbit, but they got me instead. So afterward, their school correspondent, who was this little kid, third grade, comes up and he, says, "Can I interview you for the school newspaper?" And they used a mimeograph machine. I don't even have mimeograph machines anymore, but it was an early Xerox. And he said, "Can I interview you?" And I said, "Sure, of course." So he interviewed me and asked, the typical kinds of questions. And then at the end, he said, "Okay, that's all, I'm done." And I said, "Oh, wait, because I'm a journalism major. I went to Chase School." And I said, "Look," whenever you're interviewing someone, always ask them as the last question, tell me something you've never told anybody before. Always end an interview with that. And so the kid looked at me and said, "Oh, okay. Tell me something you've never told anybody before." So I told him something I had never told anybody before. When we were making the movie, Steve Spielberg came up to me and said, "Gary, I read this book when it first came out, and I just loved it." And he said, "Now all I can get are paperbacks. Can you give me an original autographed hardcover copy?" And I said, "Of course." Steve Spielberg, right? Well, the problem was I didn't have any. I had given them all away. I had no copies of my own book, none. So I had to go to a rare book dealer, and I had to pay $325 for a copy of my own book, which I then autographed and gave to Steve Spielberg, not telling him that it was a used book, because you don't want to give a used book to Steve Spielberg. So I told that to the kid, and the kid printed it in his little, mimeograph thing and passed it out to the third grade. Well, what I didn't know was that the kid's father was a stringer for the Associated Press.
Oh, no.
And he read that mimeograph sheet and said, "This is a great story," and put it on the AP wire. And it came out in every major paper in the United States, right? Well, embarrassing, but the good part, 36 people who I had sent books to when it first came out sent them back. And they said, "You should not be without a copy of your own book."
Oh, how sweet.
Yeah, really nice. Only the second time I've ever told that story. So not really something I've never told anybody, but close.
Well, Gary, my father works. No, I'm just kidding. This is a good one. Let's do this one. This is from Sultry Sally.
Ooh.
Now, but by your own rule, I should have made the previous question the last question that I asked you.
Let's hear it.
Boxers or briefs?
Ooh, good question. Good question, Sally. The answer to that question is boxers and briefs at the same time. Sometimes boxers first with briefs over. Sometimes briefs first, boxers over. Today, neither. I'm going full Bugs Bunny today. All right.
I'll thank you not to stand.
You'll thank me not to point the camera down.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate that. We make sure it stays visible. Good luck with the new book. Good luck
Thanks.
With the two new films, and just really thank you for continuing to create.
Sure. Can I give a plug to my website, www.garywolf.com? You can read all things Gary Wolf there.
Absolutely. GaryWolf.com. Is it Gary Wolf or Gary K. Wolf?
Gary Wolf. Believe it or not, somebody took Gary K. Wolf. I've got to track him down and see if I can.
You got to find out how many simoleons it's going to take to get
he's probably been getting my royalty checks. He's probably got all those Disney dollars in his basement.
Well, the joke's on him. Toys R Us is out of business. All right, Gary, take care.
All right, take care.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this opening part of FanCon 2020. I would like to once again thank my very special guest, Gary K. Wolf, for being here and telling us some pretty awesome secrets and really giving us some things, again, to look forward to, which is always wonderful. Thanks to everyone at home who wrote in fan questions. And, of course, we've got lots more FanCon 2020 coming up, so Stay tuned for more.